Okay. Hello, my name is Sam Applefield. I am the Food Policy Coordinator for the Office for Montgomery County in the Office of Public Health, and I am delighted to be joined today by Dr. Brie Berry. Brie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Dr. Brie Berry. I am an anthropologist and an assistant professor in the Department of Environment and Sustainability at Ursinus College.
Great. Well, thanks so much for taking time to speak with me today, Brie, and wanted to talk a little bit about food waste as it is Food Waste Prevention Week. So, can you share just kind of some background information about food waste and kind of the scope of the issue?
Yeah, there's a lot of confusion about it, but what we tend to say is that globally, 30 to 40% of the food that is intended to be eaten by people is actually wasted. And this is a problem because we put so much energy and resources and labor into producing that food, and then we just throw it all away. And so it's a really, really big issue. And at the same time that we're throwing 30 to 40% of our food away, food insecurity is a huge problem, not only in the United States as a whole, but in Montgomery County in particular. And so there's a lot better stuff we could be doing with our food than discarding it. And so it's really, really important to think about wasted food as a problem.
Right, yeah, and it's I like that you mentioned it's not just the wasted food itself, but it's all the energy and all the inputs that go into producing the food that ends up, being part of that waste as well. Um, what would you say are some of the kind of the driving factors that contribute to food waste continuing to be a problem?
Mm. I mean, there's a lot of things that influence how much food is wasted. One of the things I think is really kind of um, important to think about is just expiration dates on our food. So a lot of folks don't know that the expiration dates on our food don't actually mean what we think they mean. They don't mean that our food has gone bad. It just means that the manufacturer, the producer of that food thinks that that's probably the best date to consume it by. Like it will be the most delicious by that date. And after that, it might be slightly less delicious. It doesn't mean it's suddenly completely unsafe to eat, but we act like that is what it means. And so a lot of times we're throwing away perfectly good stuff because a date that's printed on the food product says that the date has passed. And so there's actually a lot of people working on this in the policy space to just clarify what date labels mean on food, and try and make it so that we're not intentionally throwing food away that we could otherwise eat. But there's other reasons why we throw away food, and waste it. Another kind of misconception is that most of the food we're throwing away is just like kind of little scraps here and there. And actually, a lot of the food that we discard is whole edible food that could benefit someone else. So it's even more important to think about how we could get it into the hands of another person instead of sending it to a landfill or an incinerator.
Right, right, yeah. Um, could you share then what are kind of some alternatives? You mentioned, getting food into the hands of others. Yeah, what else can be done to mitigate food waste?
Yeah, so the US EPA has what's called the wasted food scale, um, which kind of lays out a list of options in order of what we should be doing with our food instead of discarding it. And the first thing we're supposed to do is actually reduce the amount of food that we generate or use overall, so that there won't be too much, and so that none will be wasted. And then we really want to think about how we can get food to people. Like that's the most important thing. We spent so much energy and resources producing this food. We want people to eat it so that we're addressing food insecurity too. Um, if it's not suitable for other folks to eat or it's not possible to get it to other folks, then we think about solutions like feeding food to animals. So if folks have backyard chickens, or a lot of times institutions can connect with like hog farms and things like that to feed food scraps to animals. If that's not an option, then we go down the route of considering things like composting. And that's a really beneficial use of food. We still want to get it into something's belly first, but if that's not a choice, composting is not a bad way to go. And then from there, there are other kind of less preferred options like anaerobic digestion. And then finally, thinking about things like landfilling and incinerating. But as much as we can keep it out of those management strategies, we're going to do a lot better stuff with our food.
Right, right. Yeah, thanks for walking through that that hierarchy of the different options there. Um, what do you have any examples of kind of what's happening locally here in Montgomery County, or any of the work that you're doing at Ursinus?
Yeah, so we think about at our sinus, we're thinking about wasted food and wasted food prevention in a lot of different ways. So we're trying to figure out how we can get our surplus to our students or to the local community, right? So again, getting food to people who might need it. And that's like the first thing we're trying to do. We're also trying to like hone in on how we can make sure we're getting just enough food and not too much so that we're working on source reduction as well. Then we're also trying to work with local partners to see how we can set up composting opportunities, and we're exploring anaerobic digestion as well. So we're thinking about this from all of the different approaches, depending on the food, what state it's in, and what our capacity is to do something better with it. So I don't think there's like one thing to do, but we're definitely trying to approach it from a lot of different perspectives and just see like how we can kind of move the needle. Can I share one thing that I'm really excited about, actually?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so one kind of lower tech thing that we're doing on campus is we are trying to set up an alert system so that when there's campus events, we're going to let people know through an app that there's extra food available. And so people can come, take the extra food so that it doesn't get wasted. And at the same time, we can help kind of address some of our food insecurity problems on our campus. So it's a neat little, like a very easy trick, right? Using existing technology to help get people food and help keeping it out of the landfill as well. So it's a fun thing that we're just getting ready to hopefully launch soon.
That's great. That's great. And I think it's a good example of how the types of interventions necessary, really depend on the context, right? So if you're on a college campus and you know there are students who are, you can contact easily and they can come and pick up that food. That's kind of that, like you said, kind of first objective, getting food into people's bellies. But if you're, at in another way where the institution is looking at maybe a volume of food that can, as you mentioned before, go to a hog farmer or another partner where it can still be diverted from a landfill and still be utilized in some other fashion.
Yeah, I know some really cool grocery stores in Montgomery County too. They have a produce section and they also have like a little cafe, right? So like Kimberton Whole Foods is a great example. When stuff isn't has been out in the produce section, it's not okay to keep it there. They can serve it as a smoothie, like if it's got a blemish on it, right? So it still tastes totally fine. It just might not look perfect. And so they can reprocess that food and make it so it's still edible for other folks. So there's really like creative little tricks that you can do to keep food from being wasted. And ultimately, it's still really delicious.
Right, right. Yeah, I think that's another great example. Is there anything else you want to share? Other examples worth highlighting, or anything else, for people to know about managing wasted food?
I just think anything we can do makes a big difference. So whether it's keeping stuff in your fridge, using the smell test, if it smells and looks okay with your nose and your eyes, then go ahead and use that food, right? We don't have to throw it away because of dates. And I will say that I have a backyard compost bin, and it keeps my trash bin from being super gross because I don't have food scraps in my trash can. And I store my food scraps in my freezer because I'm too lazy to take them out after every meal. So putting them in the freezer keeps my kitchen free of fruit flies too. So highly recommend. But whatever space you have to take action makes a difference in this issue.
Nice, nice. That's a great home composting tip there as well. Um, yeah, thanks so much for your time today, and I think that's all.
Thanks, Sam.